There it is. Good. We're continuing in the Mimor of the Rebbe, which talks about the going out of Egypt and how it is a preparation for the future redemption. And just as the going out of Egypt was by means of Moshe, and without Moshe, the Jews would have never even dreamed of beginning to go out of Egypt, so too will be the future redemption by means of Moshiach. And just as the going out of Egypt were amazing miracles, and it was done with the hand of God. In other words, Moses just led the people out, but he didn't vanquish their enemies, and he didn't open up the doors, and he didn't split the sea. Moses didn't bring the bread from heaven. But in his merit, all these things happened, and also in the merit of the Jewish people. But all that is just information. The main thing was, what are we supposed to do? Judaism demands action. Judaism demands a partnership between us and God. In fact, that's what the creation demands, a partnership between the creation and the creator, between man and the Almighty. Partnership. That's why God made man. And first man didn't do it, didn't live up to God's expectations. So came along the Jewish people. Abraham got the point. He understood why man was created, namely to be partners with the Creator, to serve the Creator, and not to think about what he'll receive, but rather what he can contribute. And the Jews went down to Egypt. There they learned how to be servants. And when they got out, Moses said, okay, now you had a 210-year lesson on how to be a servant. Now you're going to be servants of God. But the big difference is that now it depends on your free will. If you don't want to, you can go home. You don't want to serve God, you don't have to. You don't have to. That's the choice. If you don't serve God, you're going to be really letting God down. The end is not going to be good. But if you are going to be serving God, then it's a totally different life. You're not thinking about at all about personal considerations. You're putting yourself in the hands of your Creator. God's creating you, so he must be okay. He took you out of Egypt, right? Gave you bread from heaven, right? Why did he do these things for free? So serve him for free. Give it back to him. Well, the fact of the matter is that the Jews got out of Egypt. Why did they get out of Egypt? Because that was just a trial run. That was just like a free sample. Getting out of Egypt. Getting out of Egypt was supposed to introduce the Jews to God and let the Jews know how good God is, and how wonderful God is, and how almighty God is, and introduce them also to Moses. That Moses is the one that's going to tell you what God wants. And it increased more and more until finally Moses took them to Mount Sinai and he really told them what God wants. God, Torah Tzivu Moshe. We say Moshe, he commanded the Torah to us. So the going out of Egypt introduced the Jewish people to God and how miraculous God is, how good God is, and how almighty God is. And it introduced the Jewish people to Moses to let everyone know that Moses, he's the spokesman of God. But more than anything else, it introduced the Jewish people to the Jewish people, to what a Jew is. And that the ability and the job of the Jews and what they're chosen for is to perfect this world, to make this world a beautiful and perfect place. So the Rebbe is explaining how to do it. So if you remember last time we said there seems to be two contradictory sentences. One of them says that we left Egypt in one day. Laman tizkor yom tzeitcha meretz Yisrael. You have to remember the day that we left Egypt. So we left Egypt in one day. In fact, historically, that's the fact. We left Egypt in one day. One day we were there, and the next day we weren't there. But on the other hand, it says there's a prophecy from Micha, prophet Micha, and it says, "Ki amei," just like the days of going out of Egypt, I will show you miracles. So this is talking about the future redemption. I will show you, not that I did show you. I will show you miracles. But in order to do this future redemption, I will show you miracles similar, like the days of going out of Egypt. In order to do this, you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to be partners. It's so, but here's the big seemingly contradiction. Here it says kiyameh, like the days of going out of Egypt, and wasn't days. So the Rebbe says essentially that the power to leave bad, to leave the past, comes from the day that we left Egypt. That's mainly the going out of Egypt was going from bad. But all of the days from when we left Egypt 3,333 years ago until now, when Moshiach is supposed to come up, reveal himself in any second, a most miraculous way, this will take Yameh. This is a lot of days. Every day since then, since that 3,000 years ago, every day the Jewish people have been going a little bit out of their exile. And even if a lot of times they made mistakes, but you learn from your mistakes also. The Rebbe doesn't say that here, but it says it elsewhere. Remember when we talked about the golden calf? Okay, so it says every day, therefore, a person can and must and is able to and certainly will go out of the limitations, spiritual limitations, personality limitations, attitude limitations that he did yesterday. It's very, very gradual. It's very gradual to the point that every day becomes a little bit closer to God. Now you have to realize that God is not what we think, right? God is not what we think. God is not, this big, the Wizard of Oz or something sitting up in the clouds, and he's looking down at us. And to certain, of course, God is looking down at it. God is looking, and he cares about what we do, and he's receptive to what we do, and he reacts to what we do, and all this. But don't limit God to that. The fact of the matter is God is also creating the whole entire universe with all the atoms and all, etc. And that's pretty amazing. And that's nothing for God. That's the smallest thing. The giving of the Torah was infinitely greater than that. And that's what we're moving toward. We're moving toward the giver of the Torah. We're moving toward making the whole entire creation a home for the Creator, where the Creator will reveal himself. Okay, so that's what we said. This is talking about going out of Egypt. When we left the first time, this gives us the power to go from bad, essentially. But the ability to go every single day, to go higher and higher, this is every day. That's what I mean. That's what Micha was talking about. And that will bring us Erano Niflaot. That we will see amazing miracles that are even greater than going out of Egypt. In time and in space. In time and in space. So just like there can be 1 second, all of a sudden, there's what's called time, space, and soul. So just like in space, all of a sudden the Holy Temple is going to pop up, whoop, and all of a sudden all the Jews will come to the land of Israel. And they said they won't even have to wait for planes and get checked for corona and all this stuff. It'll just, all of a sudden they'll just be transported on clouds. Who knows what's going to be, but it's going to be. Right? Just like the Jews never dreamed they would leave Egypt. And that's the basis of Judaism. They left. So we can't forget about the ability of God to make miracles. Also the same thing with time. In one instant, pop, the whole thing can change. And the same thing in soul. In one instant, all of a sudden, everyone's minds can change. I remember there used to be, we can see how powerful propaganda is, right? If the news says something. I remember in America there was this big trial. It's not important. There was a trial that some very important person, they said he killed his wife and he didn't kill his wife. And every day I could care less about it, but I heard people talking about it. And people would, one day, the news would say, he's innocent. Oh, that poor man, his wife was killed. Then the next day they'd say, no, he's guilty. That evil. So everybody's attitude and emotions just changed according to one little idea, right? He's innocent. Oh, he's innocent. That suffering man, his family was killed, and he was guilty. That evil devil. He was right from one end to the other just because of one little idea. The fact is, what was the truth? That's what everybody wanted to know. The truth is that God is creating the world, and God is infinitely good, and He's infinitely close to us. When people see that, that's called going out of Egypt. But in order to see that, you have to incorporate it into your day-to-day life. Okay, behold, now, from what we said, that going out of Egypt every day is every day a little bit higher. Every day we become more in tune with the infinite creator of the universe. Shebizamana Galus, the giver of the Torah. Shebizamana Galus, that now we are in exile. Yotzia Mitzrayim, going out from these limitations is going out of higher and higher and higher limitations. And it must be that now we're in exile, we've already purified all these lower crass limitations, and now we're going out of higher limitations, right? More refined limitations than there was Bizamana Bayat in the time of the temple. It was a Mana Galat Gufa, and in the time of the exile itself, but Dorot Dikva to the Moshiach now, in our generation, in the very last generation. Now think about it. All these generations we've been purifying and purifying and purifying, and the suffering of the Jews and the prayers of the Jews. If so, this is all gathered together, right? It all conglomerates until more and more merits and more refinement. So if so, what's remaining now? Only the highest, most delicate refinements, the deepest. Ubafrat b'dor acharon, and especially now in our last generation, nasa yatzia mimitzrayim na'alim od yoter, even higher and higher limitations. The notice of Lazed, in addition to this, that every single day, mevarim od netzutzos, we purify more and more sparks. Al yedei, by means of this, we come closer and closer to the arrival of the Moshiach. Also, the Indian of Yetzias Mitzrayim also says this idea of going out of Egypt, going out of all meitzarim, all limitations, hagbalot, and impediments. B'kol yom, every day, ubofen nalioter, it's higher and higher. So every day we become more refined, every day more appreciative of what the Creator is, what the Almighty is, what the Torah is, what Moshe is, what Mashiach is, what a Jew is, what the creation itself is, how miraculous the world is. And by means of the service of going out of Egypt, in these last days before the coming of the Mashiach, that's supposed to happen yesterday. Why? It's impossible to understand why we've been schlepping out so long. That going out of Egypt is also from the highest and most refined levels of Egypt, the most refined limitations. By means of this, we will merit Bakar of Mamish, the Gu'ulatida, to this future redemption. Sha'az then will be going out of all limitations and boundaries. So we're talking about the perfection of creation, that man will be like the first man. When God created man, the first man, he was perfect, almost. But part of his perfection was that he had the power of free will, and he used it for the wrong thing. And because of that, he's thrown all of these generations into total confusion. But if we could really clean our glasses, and we could see our spiritual glasses and our godly glasses, and that we could see through all this veneer of selfishness and physicality and spirituality, and to see the Creator and why the Creator is creating, the amazing miraculousness and value of the Torah and the giver of the Torah, and how every word and every commandment of the Torah reveals the commander in the world. If we could see this, then the whole world would be, people's values would totally change. I think I told you the story, but I'll tell it again. They say a story that once a fellow got shipwrecked. He got on this island, and the whole ship sank. Nobody knows what happened to all the other passengers. He's the only one, and he got saved. And he gets on this island. There's people there, and the people are nice to him. You give him what to eat, and he takes him a while. He recovers, and he starts learning the language. And he's walking down the street one day after he becomes healthy, and suddenly he looks down on the street and he notices that it's all glistening and glimmering, and he goes and he picks it up, and he knows a little bit about gems. He used to be a businessman, and he looks and he sees this is like genuine diamonds and rubies and emeralds and sapphires, and he can't believe it. These things are huge and they're worth who knows how much. He starts stuffing them in his coat and he's on his knees, just stuffing these things in his pockets. And suddenly here's little kids laughing, and an older person comes and says, "Excuse me, what are you doing? I see you haven't recovered from your ordeal." He said, No. I said, "Listen, just don't tell anybody. These things are worth a fortune." What are you crazy? Look at the whole streets are filled with them. They're everywhere you want. They're not worth anything. Exactly the opposite. They're really hard. It's hard to work with them and everything. They're not worth anything. He says, really, what's worth something? Here is worth fish. That's what our currency is. Our currency here is fish. Fish is that's a meaningful thing. If the fish is worth something, you can eat it. What are these stones are worth nothing? What are they worth? Put them down. Put them down. It's not worth anything. Fish is the main thing. So the fellow gets into it, and he starts realizing that yes, fish is really what's worthwhile. These streets are just filled with these diamonds and sapphires. So he starts working and gathering fish, and he's a businessman. So he even invents some sort of refrigeration, and from that he makes a bank that people can come to his thing, and he keeps the fish for a couple of weeks. Usually the fish only lasts a couple of days, and he becomes a rich. Suddenly one day he realizes, hey, I want to go back home. So he takes these fish, it's like maybe 1/10 of the fish that he's got, and he gets people to build him a whole ship. And somehow or other he gets a map or whatever. Anyway, so he gets on this ship, and he's a navigator himself. Anyway, he gets on the ship, and he makes a couple of refrigerators there just so he'll bring some of his riches back with him. And he packs it with fish, and he goes back home. It takes him about 3-4 weeks to get back home. And as he comes to the docks, as there's people standing on the docks holding their nose, telling them to go away, not to anchor by the docks. As he anchors up there, the police come. They say, "Get out! Get this thing out of it. It smells terribly. It's awful." He says, "But I'm a rich man. Tell it to the psychiatrist. Get out of here." So sure enough, he gets on the land, and he tries to find somebody to buy the thing. He has to dump all the fish. They take it out and they dump it, and he gets somebody to buy the ship for like nothing. It smells so bad. He comes home, he goes home to his parents, his family is so happy to see him. "Daddy, here you are." He's happy to see his family, but he feels so miserable. He had so much money, he had so much. "How did you get along when I was gone?" They said, "Oh, what could we do? We had to borrow, we had to live on charity, we're living in this little hut." "Where were you, Daddy?" He says, "I was in the place." "Oh," he said, "I remember I brought a memento from where I was." He takes out one of these huge diamonds. He puts it on the table. He takes out a sapphire, puts it on the table. His children say, "Where did you get this from?" He said, "It's from the dead. The streets are full of them over there." He said, "What? This is worth a fortune. How do we get back there? How do we get back and find it?" Of course, he forgets, whatever, make the story real. He says, "Daddy, we're rich people again." He says, "These things are worth nothing." He says, "No, you don't realize this is worth millions." So that's what's called the mashal. What's the nimshal? What's the point of it? We come down into this world, and the soul, before it comes down into the world, it realizes how precious what's a commandment. Oh, of God. And the soul will do anything to come down into this world to do a commandment. It comes down into in the world. Look, there's commandments everywhere. Everybody says, "What are you nuts? Commandments? It's worth absolutely nothing. What's worth here? Money is worth. Here, fame, power, pleasure. Right? That's the big thing. Oh yeah, really. Takes him a while, but he gets into it. He starts making money. He gets pleasure. He gets right. Finally, after a person dies, so his soul goes up. No, what do you got? Look at, I got all this pleasure. Where is it? Oh, everybody's holding their nose. All the angels. Phew, that's terrible. We don't. Says, what do you got? 1 second, but you put on tefillin once? Says, yeah, but what's that worth? That's the thing anybody can do. Oh, this is worth millions. This is precious. If if we could only see how precious the commandments and the Torah is here in this world, and then the whole world would see that why are they precious? Because they come from God. But in order to do that, you have to go out of Egypt. So the going out of Egypt was the first one was very gross. It was very physical. It was very, how do you say, going out of Egypt for dummies. They all left Egypt. They saw God's hand and everything. But that's not the real thing. The real thing is opening up your mind to see the true value of what Torah is, what the commandments are, what the world is, what the physical, what an amazing miracle is, the world is. And this is the whole idea of Moses. But we have to do the work. And then Moses, in this case, is the Rebbe. Mitzad zeh, like it says, that all of the concealments, even the highest concealments, are called Egypt. They're called Mitzrayim because they are limited and concealing. Hainu the almost that the worlds are the world, that all of the worlds, the whole creation is called Mitzrayim, Egypt, because Egypt is just an English word. Mitzrayim means meitzar, limitation. And the world, the reason that the whole entire creation, from the highest spiritual levels down to this world, is called Mitzrayim, is called the world of limitations, is for two reasons. Number one, because they're limited. Mitzrayim comes from the language of Meitzar, the Gavul, of narrowness and limited. The Gam also Mitzad Zeh, Shehitavu Tamu al Yedei Helam Or. And because the creation of the world is by means of the concealment of God's light. In order to make the world seem real, so God has to conceal his real reality. So the two things about the world are limited and they also conceal. They're limited, they're defined, and we think that, and then they also conceal. We think this is reality and there is no other reality. Okay, you do it like it's known, that the concealment of the tzimtzum or rishon, of what's called the first contraction. What does it mean, first contraction? So it's not like a woman giving birth, gives the contractions are starting. This is, in this case, it's called tzimtzum, means that God, to say it in a very crass way, he limited himself. He limited himself, which is not true. God did not limit himself. He just limited his light. And in fact, God did not limit his light. God just concealed it a little bit. God is never changed. God is everywhere. And God is found in everything, and he's around everything, creates everything. But nevertheless, God made this, what do you say, a disguise. He put on a disguise. It's like if a person could change his, contort his face so that he looks like someone else. But he's really not somebody else. He contorts his face so he like closes one eye and so you can't recognize him anymore. Especially, let's say, if a person could change his face so he looks like a dog, he looks like a rock. Right? So that's what God did. So to speak, he concealed his oneness. That's called the first tzimtzum, the first contraction. That by means of this, by means of God contracting his oneness, it made, so to speak, an empty place where it seemed that God wasn't. And through this, he could make a new light. It's something like a person, before he can speak, he has to sort of arrange his thoughts, usually. The example is always given in Hasidut, this first tzimtzum of a teacher that he goes into a class, let's say a great physicist, and he goes into a third grade class and he has to teach these children. So what does he do? He has to remove all of his knowledge. And especially if they say that, you're not teaching them physics today, you're going to teach them history. He knows a little bit about history, so he has to remove all of his knowledge about mathematics that he's got, everything. Now, all of a sudden, he has to try to remember what he knows about history, and he has to arrange it. So that's the same thing. This first contraction is that God, so to speak, removed his mind from his oneness. He concealed it. And then he shot a new beam down. That's like speaking. The first contraction, this is God removing his mind from his oneness. In our case, like the professor removes his mind from mathematics. By means of this, by means of him God removing his energy, whatever, from his oneness, as that's made it seem that there's something other than God. This made a place you could put the worlds in. That's what God wanted, right? That's why it says the world is created from God's speech. This is what's called God's contracting himself by means of removing himself. Namely, that God's oneness, God's reality, the fact that God is almighty, that he's above the spiritual, and that God had this amazing way of concealing this. That's called the first tzimtzum. And that's called Egypt. That's Mitzrayim. That's something like Mitzrayim of the bad side. Mitzrayim, the simple Mitzrayim. The Jews were in a physical place called Egypt, Mitzrayim. This concealed and hid over the true identity of what the Jews are, what the world is, what reality is, what God is. Like Paro says, I don't know what God is. The Islam, we can say, says, this is also what it continues in the Mimor, the Ba'olam, that in the world there's three things. The word olam. The word olam, what do we say? That olam means worlds. God created worlds. Why did God create worlds? Because he wants to be revealed in these hidden places, God's worlds. But the word olam has three connotations. Olam, simply, that God created a place. A place, he created place, he created time. These are creations. So God created a limited, defined creation. That's called world, from the language of olam, world. Second meaning is, olam is from the language of ha'elem, concealment and hester. That God concealed his real reality. The Yishlom, or we can say, that's what it continues in the Mimor. Then the world, that there's three things. This is the Mimor of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe that he said in 1948, Tafshin Chet. He said the word olam, three things. Olam simply means place and time. Olam is concealment. And another one is Lashon elem. Elem is like a young, like Alma. Alma is like a young girl. Elim is a young man, strong. Shepirushahu na'arot v'koach, youth and power. Mavur, like it says, like it's explained, what's the connection between these three explanations? Namely, the world means definition, world means concealment, and world means powerful. Shehelam v'hester, that this concealment of the world, and the world we said is time and place, is elim, it's powerful. Tokef Gadol, it's very, very powerful. The world attacks us, the world surrounds us, the world smothers us, the world convinces us. Yesh Lomer, we can say, the Zeshem Mevi Khan, that brings not only the explanation of Olam, the usual meaning. Olam means world, means time and place. That the previous Rebbe says that the word Olam also means, and that it means concealment. Elim. Why? Because he wants to come and tell us, the Rebbe wants to stress to us that this world, as it is, makom, uzman, time and place, limitation, who biorak ala olamotem mitzarim, because the world, if you would just say that the worlds are limited, so you'd understand that the world is just a limited place, right? It's a limited place, and we have to go out of our limitations. Limitations. In order to explain gam meitzer behelem, that the world not only is it a limited place, but it also conceals. Va'adju bedugmas helem vehester mitzrayim kapasuto, until the world becomes, and there it can be in the world such a thing as Mitzrayim itself, that they can keep the Jews imprisoned. Right, in history they were there 210 years. Who maybe also brings that the Olam Mia is Helem, that the world is also conceals. The Helem V'Hester, and also that the world is very powerful concealment. Okay, what does he want over here? Listen, the story is like this. The Jews got out of Egypt. What was Egypt? Egypt was a country that was run by rulers that were very, very spiritual, very powerful. And their power was totally devoted to their own benefit. Their own benefit. That's all they thought about. And the Egyptians, it says in those days that Egypt ruled over the whole world. It says, but you should know that the Jews were their slaves and the Jews got out. That's the whole story of going out of Egypt. There was a power, Egypt, they ruled over the whole world, and that the Jews got out. God took them out. Moses took them out. It says, but this is also, this is true, but this is also a hint at something much bigger and much more real, preparing us for a much greater task, a challenge. And that is the going out of not just one little country in the world that was tremendously powerful, but going out of all of the limitations of creation. And not only going out of the limitations of creation means becoming spiritual. Spiritual is also part of the creation. Paro was very spiritual. Right? All the religions in the world are spiritual. The idea of Judaism is to reveal the creator in the spiritual and the physical. That's being unlimited. That's true unlimited. He says, but the problem is that what is the creation? The creation, another word for the creation is the world. Right? The entire creation, the entire world. The world presents very, very severe challenges. Namely, that the world, first of all, is very, very limited, and it's trying to convince us that that's who we are, that we're also very limited, we're part of the world, number one. Number two, the world conceals over God. It's as though there is no choice. It's not that the world says, listen, you can choose me and get immediate pleasure, or you can choose God and do what's right. You know, leave it up to God, he'll do it okay. It's not, the world doesn't say that there's a choice. The world says there's no such thing as God. It completely conceals any idea or feeling of the creator. So the world has two things then. The world, first of all, it's limited and bounded. And number two is that the world actively conceals the creator. That's the way God made it. God made it that way. So it would be a real genuine challenge. And the world also does it very powerfully. Ella means power. And that's the idea of not just going out personally of limitations, but transforming all of this to realizing that it's all what the creator wanted. And the reason that the creator wanted is so that we would accept the challenge and change it. Well, Moshiach Mimor, so it continues in the Mimor, Tisavos Olamos, that the creation of the worlds comes from the Or HaKav. All right, now we're going to get a little bit Kabbalistic over here. We did it already before. We're talking about the first contraction. How did the worlds get here? So this is according to Kabbalah, of the Lurianic Kabbalah, and even before that, there was what's called the beam of light. In simple terms, it's God's word. What does it say in the Bible? That God spoke. So before God spoke, right, God was infinite. God still is infinite. God is above any ability of articulating himself. But amazingly enough, God did do it. God somehow or other managed to conceal his total oneness because he wanted to create a world. He wanted there to be a world where the Torah is. Right? This is all part of the plan of the Torah. God wanted there to be a world. So how did he do it? So to speak, he concealed his infinite oneness, just like the mathematics teacher conceals his knowledge of mathematics in order to teach the 3-year-old children or the third grade children. And he concealed it. And then he shot one beam of reality down, and that's called the Kav. That's called the beam. And this beam is very, very, very intense and holy in its source. And as it becomes less and less holy, that's what makes up and down. Up is what's more holy, and God contracts it more and more and more and hides more and more light until that's what's called down. The Mimor shalifnei tzimtzum, that from this light, which is before this contraction we talked about, it was not possible to create the worlds as they are now. Because the worlds are, we said the worlds have this thing of up and down, direction. Shazeo, up means closer to the creator or more revealed to the creator, and mata means below the creator. Okay, but there's no such thing as being closer or higher or lower. The creator is everywhere. He creates place. So it says in order for God to make their up and down, so he had to make this thing of the contraction and shoot a beam of new creative power, a beam of reality. The top of this beam, so to speak, the source of it, that's called up. As the beam becomes more and more limited, that comes down. But really, it's not like one beam that's coming down. This is really like, it says like an onion, one shell inside of the other one. This is also what the world is called place. What? The whole idea of place spiritually means up and down. So or the light, which is before this contraction we talked about, there was no beginning, there was no rosh v'sof, up and down. And also because all of this light before the contraction, this reality that was before God decided to hide himself, is a light which is included in God's essence. And this light which is included in God's essence is totally negated, something like a beam of sunlight when it's in the sun. It's not a beam anymore. It's not a beam. It's only a beam when it comes out. The same thing, the creative force of God to create the world was included in its source. It's not a force. It's just oneness of the creator. Until, like it says, like a beam of light when it's in the sun, it's not called a beam anymore. So therefore, therefore, the worlds as they were before this tzimtzum, before this contraction or concealment, it wasn't relevant that there could be a world. Because in order to be the source of something, as there has to be, first of all, that source has to be in existence. Therefore, only by means of God contracting, and it says that there's another Mimor that says that there were really a lot of these contractions and concealments before what's called the first one. The Ali day by means of Shenimshach Tzimtzum Hu B'chinas Metzias Or. Then by means of God, so to speak, contracting and concealing here the light of his oneness, or the light as it is in its source, that by means of this apparent concealment of God, then there could be shot a new beam, and that's called light. That's what it says in the beginning, the first thing, let there be light. And this light provided the possibility there could be up and down. Al Yado, by means of this, Naseis Havos almost, by means of this, there was the worlds. And this is what we're dealing with, that we have to transform. Yeshlom, we can say, that these things that the Kav, namely that there is a world and that they conceal, this is concealed, that there is a world. There's up and down, and that there's also a world. This is connected to what we said before. Mila and Mata, that which this thing of the Kav, of the beam of light. What do we say? This beam, the God's speech that came out from God's oneness. This, that the fact that it's up and down, this is, like we said, that the world is limited. It's got boundaries, definition. And this, that the Kav seems to be a separate thing on its own, even though that God is really everywhere and everything, but this fact that the beam seems to be something separate on its own means that the real reality of God is concealed. She'enu b'tachlis abitl, meaning that the ore is not totally surrendered to its source. It seems to be, the world seems to be a separate thing in itself. This is like the idea of not just that God is defined himself by means of making a world, but that the world conceals over God. That's the reason why the world seems to be so real, is because God concealed his real reality. Now, according to this, the Zeshel, almost that the worlds are called Mitzrayim, is because they are limited and they are concealed. These two things we said, that the worlds have a definition, everything is defined, up, down, spiritual, physical, right, left, north, south. And that's the limitation of the world. And also Helen, that the worlds with all this limitation and they scream out that there's no God. We're the ultimate reality. If you want to, go to the spiritual worlds, but it's a lie. The fact that there can be these two things, Yesh Lomar, we can say, Shagam Akab, that this is the way that God wanted it, that even in this beam of reality, force that God emits, which is called God's speech, it must say that also in this creative force of God, there's also concealment. In other words, what's the Rebbe saying? That even when we go out of the physical Egypt and we leave, we can become higher, that now our problem is spiritual Egypt, but nevertheless, that's this beam of light that goes higher and higher and higher, and all of it, the whole entire business of this beam of reality that God shoots down, the God's word that creates the world, all of these are just different levels of concealment, higher and higher and more refined. And when we're talking about the Mashiach will take us out of all limitations, means going out of all of the boundaries. This means that what is the Mashiach going to reveal? He will reveal not spiritual levels. Spiritual levels, that's small change. Going to heaven. And that's kids stuff. That's like the cartoon before the main feature. That God will reveal the essence of Or Ein Sof. The essence which is before the Tzimtzum will be revealed here in this world. How will it be? So that's going to be also the idea of eventually the raising of the dead. That there won't be any more up and down. There won't be any more dead in life. It'll just be pure life. That's what it means, Begula Tita, in the future redemption. And this is what we're waiting. This is what we're waiting for. This is a thing that's supposed to happen instantly. Now, they'll be totally going out of Egypt. In other words, it'll be so good, so alive, so real, that this world will suddenly become like a huge, amazing miracle, like the person that took the diamonds out of his pocket. He thought they weren't worth anything. Going out of all limitations and boundaries. As is then, Gila, or there'll be revealed light, which is even before the Tzimtzum, which is before this first contraction that we talked about up here. And that's what we're talking about. Every day we have to go out. That's what it means, the days of going out. Every day we have to become more and more real. Gila or a believable, there will be the unlimited life which is above any light, which is above any light, even the light which is relevant to creating the worlds. Until finally there'll be revelation of the essence of God. Okay, these ideas we basically don't know really what we're talking about because we're so convinced that this world is the only real thing, and we react to the reality of this world. But the fact is that the world is a creation, and that there is a creator. And that as good as the world is, right? If a person he wins the lottery, and he wins $50 million, he wins $100 million, right? And he has advisors and everything, so he's very happy. A person's very happy, right? Or a person was sick and he gets well, or somebody that he loves was in danger, and the person came out to be saved. So you're very happy. Why it makes you happy? Because things are good, and that you can function. You can be who you are. You can be a human being. You can appreciate the world. You can add to the world. You can attach to the Creator, because that's what the Mashiach is going to bring. Just like Moses took all the Jews out of physical Egypt, as Mashiach will teach us how that we ourselves can go out of even spiritual Egypt. That's why it says that when Mashiach comes, one of the things will be there won't be any more religions. The people, nobody will be forced. All the people will realize, it says Sheker Nachalu Avoteim. It says that all of the nations, every human being will realize that they've been lied to, that their leaders, that they're founders of the religions, they had good intentions, but they didn't tell them the truth of how precious and important they are, that God himself is creating them every moment for a purpose. That Mashiach will reveal, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's go to the Sikha of the Rebbe. Take a